You know, the world order that's been in place pretty much since World War II? Well, it's starting to crack. And in its place, two very different visions for the future are starting to emerge. One is about shared global leadership, and the other, well, that one's dominated by just two superpowers. So the big question is, who's going to write the rules for the 21st century? Let's get into it. And really, this is the question of our time, isn't it? This isn't just about who's got the biggest economy or the most powerful military. It's about who actually gets to hold the pen and write the rules for the world we're all going to live in. And right now, that answer is completely up for grabs. So here's the fundamental problem. The big institutions that were built way back in 1945, things like the United Nations Security Council, they were designed for a world that, frankly, just doesn't exist anymore. They're struggling to keep up with today's challenges, and they're definitely struggling to reflect today's real centers of power. Okay, so one possible future, one vision, is what people are calling a multipolar world. The idea here is that instead of just one or two countries calling all the shots, power is shared between several major global players. It's a vision for a more balanced, maybe a more inclusive world stage. And look, this isn't just some abstract idea from a textbook. This is a direct quote from a president of Finland. He's making a really powerful case for some fundamental change. And he's pointing to one country in particular that he sees as a key piece of this new world order. Yeah, President Stubb really didn't pull any punches. He flat out called India the world's next superpower. He praised its smart, strategic way of dealing with all sorts of different global players. And this gets right to the heart of the argument. If you don't give countries like India a permanent seat at the big kids table, then institutions like the UN, well, they just risk becoming totally irrelevant.
But here's the thing. Just as this whole multipolar idea is starting to pick up steam, a completely different proposal gets thrown into the ring, a rival vision, and it's a lot simpler and, for a lot of people, a lot more worrying.
And boom, there it is, the announcement of a G-2. Now, this isn't just some new club. This signals a completely different way of looking at the world. It's one where the United States and China basically decide to run the show together. Okay, so let's just make sure we're all on the same page with this first concept. Multipolarity is all about spreading the power out. Think of it like a board of directors, where the US, China, the EU, and rising powers like India all have a real say in what happens. So you can see this sets up a really stark choice. On one hand, you've got the multipolar idea. It's all about cooperation and sharing the load. On the other hand, you've got the G2, this bipolar world where power is locked in between two giants and everyone else is kind of left on the sidelines. The focus shifts from cooperation to just carving up the world into spheres of influence. So the billion-dollar question is, which way are we actually heading? And you know, as if that choice wasn't big enough, a real wild card just got tossed onto the table. And this one, it threatens to blow up any kind of stability we thought we had. This is a huge, huge claim. What he's saying is that other nuclear powers are basically cheating on the global test ban, and he's using that to justify the US starting its own tests again. This is a really big deal. It could reopen a door that the world has worked so hard to keep locked and bolted shut for decades. Now, this accusation didn't just pop out of thin air. It actually breathes new life into an old theory, one that goes back to 2025 after Indian missile strikes in Pakistan. Back then, rumors were flying around that these strikes had actually hit nuclear storage sites. But at the time, all the official evidence from international watchdogs and scientists said no. The science just didn't add up. And this right here is exactly why. See, a nuclear explosion underground leaves a very specific fingerprint, a three-part seismic wave. That third wave is a dead giveaway. It's a rebound from the cavity the blast creates. The tremors back in 2025? They were missing that crucial third wave. So, case closed, right? Well, maybe not. Okay, but here's where it gets really tricky. This new claim from Trump forces us to look at the loopholes in the system. Because the truth is, it is technically possible to hide a nuke test. You could do a bunch of really small tests, so small their seismic signals just get lost in the background noise of the Earth. Or, and this is pretty clever, you can use a technique called decoupling. You basically set off the bomb inside a giant underground cave to muffle the explosion. It makes a big boom look like a tiny little pop on the seismograph. So that's where we are. We're standing at a real crossroads, looking down two completely different roads for the future, and hanging over both of them is this dark cloud of nuclear uncertainty. So, to recap, you've got the multipolar promise, this idea of a more inclusive world where responsibility is shared. Then you have the bipolar challenge, a world carved up between the US and China. And simmering under the surface of it all is this nuclear uncertainty, the ultimate wild card that could just flip the whole table over.
And all of this leads us to one final, really tough question. When the old rulebook is torn up and the new one is being written in real time by rivals, all while the threat of nuclear testing is back on the table, who actually wins? Is it possible that nobody wins, and that maybe, just maybe, instability itself is the only real winner here?